8 teams from our coverage area made the playoffs, and we were at every single game tonight. The River Valley Raiders had one of the best seasons in the last 2 decades, but they had an uphill battle tonight when they took on the undefeated Zane Trace Pioneers. But that only scratches the surface of tonight's playoff action, and it's all up next on Gridiron Glory. It's time to kick off the first week of the playoffs, and we've got a lot of ground to cover. I'm your host, Justin Holbrook. We started with 35 teams at the beginning of the season, and after 10 weeks, 8 teams qualified for this year's playoffs. But it doesn't matter how they got here. The slate has been wiped clean, and what matters now is winning one game at a time to keep the season alive. Tonight was historic for both Zane Trace and River Valley. This was Zane Trace's first time ever hosting a playoff game, and River Valley made their first ever playoff appearance. And Blaine Carraher was out in Chillicothe to see it all go down.
Well, yeah, Justin, what a clash between these two groundbreaking programs. All I got to say is what a way to kick off November play. Zane Trace, they have such an experienced senior class, and it really helped them kick off this game strong. First drive, Austin Harris drops back and finds Pierce Mowry. Mowry shakes off some Raiders, picks up 18 yards. Now Harris, he's going to give his arm a break here, pitches it off to Joel Dunkel. Dunkel barrels through, and the extra point on this touchdown is no good. It's 6-0 Zane Trace early on. River Valley, they're now up. Dayton Hardway, he airs it out here, connects with Mark Rye to convert a big third down, and now Hardway, he's eaten up. He finds Kirk Morrow. It was pretty slippery out there, folks. So Morrow, he's able to go a bit further. He gets 19 yards, and 4 plays later, the Raiders, they're on the 2-yard line, and it's 4th down, but they cannot convert. Pioneers, they're forced to punt on their next drive. So Hardway, he's trying to get his groove back, but those passes just aren't falling like they used to. Here comes Truman Love right into your living room, folks. 2-point conversion's good, and now Zane Trace, they lead 14-zip. And Raiders, they really need to step it up, but Hardway, he throws this one away here. Trey Davis, he blows by the Raiders with a pick 6. This takes the wind out of the Raiders. Zane Trace, they win this one 30-0.
Well, Blaine, what do you think ultimately went wrong for River Valley?
Well, you know, we talked with Coach Sparling this week, and he said that this game was going to be tough. Going into tonight, Zane Trace's offense, they averaged almost 40 points. But what's more impressive is their absolute ability to shut teams down on defense. Zane Trace's defensive coordinator, Coach Tipton, actually was a coach on River Valley's team last season. With Tipton's knowledge of the Raiders and then Truman Love leading the Pioneer D, River Valley was bound to have some trouble putting up the points.
Well, Blaine, it looks like Hardaway had a lot of problems hitting his guys.
Well, yeah, even when Zane Trace slipped up on D and left a guy open, the passes just were not coming easy for the Raider offense. And Hardaway then got a little rattled after his first pick pass, and he really fell apart then after a second. On the night, Hardaway was 9 for 31 and had 3 interceptions.
All right, Blaine, I have a feeling you could talk about Zane Trace's defense all day, but what about the Pioneer offense?
Well, you know, Zane Trace, they have that ability to finesse their way down the field. Quarterback Austin Harris, he's not afraid to call his own number, take off down the field. And Harris, he rarely misses a receiver. He completed 7 of his 9 attempts. Truman Love and Joel Dunkel, they also pound on the ground together. They put their heads down and pick up these sneaky yards that really can bite their opponents in the end.
So more impressively, this was the first ever playoff win for Zane Trace.
Exactly. I mean, everything is just really alive for them this year. Their new coach, Coach Hall, he really invigorated the program. And you have to give it up for the senior class, putting up the work and then nabbing that first ever historic win.
And hats off to them. Hats off to River Valley, too, for a great season. What's up next for the Pioneers?
Well, the Pioneers, I don't mean to play spoiler, but Zane Trace, they're going to be taking on the Alexander Spartans next week. It really should be a physical game, Justin. I'm looking forward to it.
Well, I'm looking forward to it. And Zane Trace moves on. And speaking of moving on, since we're moving into the playoffs, we're moving on to our new hashtag, Glory Days. So whenever you tag Gridiron Glory on Twitter, be sure to use our new hashtag. To find a breakdown of playoff brackets that your team is in, be sure to give us a like on Facebook. Plus, later in the show, we'll have our first ever playoff edition of Snapchats from tonight. Our run-heavy teams, pair of them tonight, squared off when Rock Hill took on Alexander. And we have Michael Drapcho here to tell us if the Spartans could get their first ever playoff win.
Well, the key to this one, Justin, was going to be stopping the run of Rock Hill. You know, Alexander had to stop Chance Blankenship, Danny Long, and Brady Knipp. But Coach Penrod told me that he feels like the run defense is the strength of his Spartan defense. Now, the Alexander Spartans walking out of the tunnel looking pretty intimidating. But Rock Hill actually got off to a pretty good start in this game. On their second drive of the game, Chance Blankenship takes the handoff, runs through a couple tacklers, and takes it down to the 9-yard line of Alexander on this 28-yard run. And then Brady Knipp caps off the drive with the 7-yard touchdown run. That made it 7-0 Rock Hill, but that was all the Redmen got for the rest of the game. Alexander responds with Mason Chapman connecting with Lucas Thompson for the 50-yard touchdown pass. A 2-point conversion made it 8-7 Alexander, and they were just getting started. Trenton Bradbury takes the ball for Alexander, shakes one tackler, and goes for 30 yards, and that would set up a Joey Barnes touchdown. Alexander actually scored on 4 straight possessions. A.J. Marks takes the handoff. He goes for 57 yards down to the Rock Hill 5, and then on the next play, we've seen Mason Chapman do this all season. Direct snap straight up the gut for the 5-yard touchdown run. That made it 22-7 Alexander, and the Spartans went on to win this one 37-7, Justin.
Well, coming into this game, we heard a lot about the Rock Hill rushing attack, but Alexander did a good job of slowing it down tonight. How did they stop the Redmen?
Well, you're absolutely right. The Rock Hill running game was the key to this matchup. If Alexander could stop Chance Blankenship, Danny Long, and Brady Knipp, they'd be in pretty good shape, and that's exactly what happened tonight. The Spartans keyed in on those 3 from the first snap of the game, and they swarmed to the ball on basically every play. You know, the main reason that Alexander was able to stop Rock Hill was that they won the battle up front. There's no doubt anymore that the strength of this Alexander defense is its front 7. And that front 7 closed up just about every hole for the Redmen runners. And early in this game, it looked like Rock Hill was going to be able to move the ball a bit. Blankenship and Knipp both got loose for a couple runs on the outside, but the Spartans adjusted quickly and shut them down for the rest of the game. And Coach Penrod was confident his team could stop the run, and it's pretty clear why after this game.
Now, we're used to seeing Mason Chapman do most of the work for Alexander, but it seemed like that wasn't the case tonight.
Well, earlier this week, Coach Penrod told me that offensively, the Spartans were going to make it a point to get all their playmakers involved. Joey Barnes had a couple touchdowns tonight. Lucas Thompson and A.J. Marks also got a lot of touches, along with Trent Bradbury. When all those guys contribute, it takes the load off Chapman, and that makes Alexander a dangerous team.
And we mentioned it earlier, Alexander and Zane Trace will square off next week. What do you expect from that game, Michael?
Well, tonight's win set a single-season record for Alexander, and I'm sure they want to add on to that record. But it certainly won't be easy for the Spartans. Zane Trace comes into this game undefeated with a tough defense and a powerful running game. You know, these two teams are actually pretty similar, and I have to say, I'm pretty excited to see how this one plays out next week.
Well, I'm definitely excited for that game, Michael. Thanks for the great work. And sticking with the Alexander Spartans, head coach Alex Penrod has been the driver's seat all season long for them, and he's been changing the football culture. Patrick Klinger joins me now to talk about his effect on the team.
Yeah, that's right, Justin. You know, you said it best. Change. You know, in 2 short years, Coach Penrod has taken a 1-9 Spartans bunch and turned them into a 10-1 TVC Ohio powerhouse. But his record-setting season didn't stop there. It got even better when he finally became a father back in September.
Alex Penrod is turning around the Alexander Spartans program. But perhaps the biggest change comes at home. The Penrods recently welcomed their firstborn daughter, Gemma, into the family.
And it definitely changes some things. I mean, people tell you about being a father and being a dad, and you don't really understand it until you really get to experience it, and it's just been a true blessing and definitely something different and exciting to come home towards.
On top of the time and effort he puts into coaching, Penrod now faces new responsibilities at home.
I work about 2-3 hours being a head coach, and I come home and I turn the whistle over to my wife, and she becomes the head coach, and now she gets to be the one that orders me around, and I feel like one of the kids that I get to coach, and I know how they feel, so that's been the good balance there in itself too.
Jody Penrod is arguably Spartan Nation's biggest fan, and now with baby Gemma around, she feels that there is another side to the old ball coach.
Well, I would say he's a little bit different than he is. I always say that there's the Alex at home and then there's the Coach Penrod, you know, because he's so different. He's actually a very quiet person, so, you know, you only see that certain side of him when he's at home.
That coaching passion and influence spread quickly to his players. Senior quarterback Taylor Kimbrough feels that his coach already knew a thing or two about being a parent.
You can tell he just sincerely cares about us as individuals and treats us as if he's been a father since he got a job here. He treats us as if we're his kids.
Being a father and a coach are two of Penrod's favorite jobs. And at the end of the day, he just wants what's best for all of his kids.
It's very touching, and it definitely hits home a little bit and makes you feel really good about yourself, but But if they didn't think that, then I probably wouldn't be doing my job. So I know it's been a positive 2 years for these young men, and hopefully they can just take one positive avenue out of this whole season and be able to carry it on for the rest of their lives.
You know, after sitting down with the Penrods, Alex told me that he's not going to shave his beard until the Spartans lose a game, but they haven't lost all the way back since week 2. Jody says that she can't stand it, but Justin, she's just going to have to wait a little bit longer.
Well, she definitely is. We'll see if they can win that next game and he can keep that beard. Patrick, thanks a lot, and thanks for the great story. Now we're going to move on to our first Snapchats in the playoffs. I'm going to stick with the Alexander Spartans. Here we see the Spartans at their pep rally, getting pumped for their playoff game with the caption, "Still lit." Those 2 fire emojis sum up Alexander's night as they cruise to a win. And our second Snapchat comes from the River Valley Raiders. Taking the school bus to a playoff game? No way. The Raiders traveled in style to their game against Zane Trace, but the Pioneers ended their season with a blowout win. No team could stop TriValley's offense this season. MVL play is over, and tonight they face their toughest competition yet, a Boardman team that has battled with some of the best teams in the state. Nathan Wiseman joins me now live from Youngstown. And Nathan, how did TriValley's high-octane offense do against Boardman defense?
Well, yeah, that Boardman defense is extremely tough. Yeah, Boardman's recorded 3 shutouts this year and held one team to only 3 points. But that dominant defense that they're used to all season was pretty non-existent tonight. Meanwhile, TriValley, they came into this tough playoff environment on the road with a lot of confidence and shocked a lot of naysayers with this 27-2 victory tonight here in Youngstown. The TriValley student section came out tonight and had a pretty solid presence, making the 2.5-hour trip here to Youngstown. And one big game changer tonight, Boardman's leading rusher, Mario Graziani, broke off on a couple explosive runs, but then went down with a crucial injury that left him out the rest of the game. So the big difference in this game defensively for TriValley is that they forced Boardman to do what they don't like to do, which is pass the ball and force them to run to the outside, which caused a lot of problems for Boardman. And TriValley defense, like I mentioned, they played dominant all night. They even forced 4 turnovers. So instead of that Boardman tough defense like we've heard about all year, it was TriValley's defense who proved to be the more dominant team.
We knew this would be a physical matchup, Nathan. How much did TriValley's physicality play into their domination of this game?
Well, yeah, Justin, I got a chance to talk to Coach Buttermore after the game, and he told me that the key to getting a victory tonight was to match them physically. But quite frankly, he said he felt like his Scotties outmatched them physically, which is why they won this game. And quite frankly, TriValley, they started to get into their groove in the second quarter. They just ran their normal offense, a mix of big plays from Tyler McGee to Colin Slobodan and Logan Hiddle. The one big guy that came up big tonight is Cody Collins. He had another huge night running the ball, 66 yards and 2 touchdowns for him. Man, I mean, Collins, he consistently gives the Scotties those tough yards, especially when they're in the red zone. With the Scotties up big in the second half, Andrew Newsom made some big plays as well. One of those plays, an 88-yard rushing touchdown. He finished the night with 99 yards, and they simply played tough, hard-nosed TriValley football all night long and got the victory.
So, Nathan, that was a great job. They're going to go on to play Massillon Perry next week. Big win for TriValley. Thanks a lot. Now, we mentioned our Snapchats, but now it's time for our Tweets of the Week. Our first tweet of the night comes from Trimble fan Chris Huddy. Shadyside decided to have some fun with their Trimble banner, which says, "Tomcats, what are those?" I have to disagree with Chris. That was one of the best signs we've seen this year. And our second tweet comes from Patrick Bookman, a.k.a. Coach Book. He tweeted at us and Patrick Klinger and said, "I know how hungry the Warriors in Albany are. It will be a memorable night on Friday." I guess Coach Book can see the future as the Spartans won by 30. For the second consecutive year, Jackson hosted a playoff game. Tonight, the Ironmen faced the Bexley Lions, and Danny Dean went to Jackson for the first ever matchup between these two teams.
Yeah, you're right there, Justin. It was a fresh face-off between these guys, but Bexley is coached by someone who is a well-known rival of Jackson. Head coach John Smith played for Logan in high school, and he jokingly told me that they did not have any trouble beating Jackson back then, but this is 2015 in the playoffs, and anything can happen. Now here is the man to make a different story tonight, and it didn't take long for Hunter Sexton and company. Here comes Colin Massey, and he ain't stopping for nobody. Count these guys. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 on his back. He still got them in good position. That set up Raymond Potter to punch it in from 8 yards out, and the Ironmen lead 7-0. On their next drive, Mr. Massey is back again to burst through a 20-yard gain, once again putting those Ironmen in the red zone. And look who it is, his buddy Raymond Potter for his second touchdown, and the Ironmen go up 14-0 with 1 minute left in the first quarter. But Bexley, they had another 3-and-out, And on Jackson's first play of the game, Johnny Farley, he says bye Felicia and takes it 85 yards to the 1 yard line. And right after that, Colin Maxey takes his turn and pops it in. Jackson's up 21-0. Now Bexley struggled moving down the field all night, but when Michael Flanagan found a hole, he took off down the sideline for 47 yards. And a few plays later, Simon Cruz hits Josh Jones and he spins out of Colin Maxey's arms. You'll see that right here, and he will pop into the end zone. Bexley finally gets on the board with 2:50 left in the half, 28-7, and Jackson went on to prevail 49-14, and their bodacious backfield was too much for Bexley. Hunter Sexton had 119 yards on 12 carries. Blake McCoy had 10 carries, 88 yards, and a touchdown. This offense had a total of 475 rushing yards, and that is 12 yards per carry, Justin.
Well, that's great. And Jackson, they were able to create so many running lanes.
They were, and it was a really big team effort. It was Hunter Sexton most of all, though. I mean, he is leading by example. We already know he is not your average quarterback. He is a triple threat. Every single time he throws a pitch or hands it off, he's right there to block for his guys. So many of those running lanes are created by Sexton's ability to get out front and lead his backs down the field.
And Jackson's backfield has been dominant all season long, but was there anyone that seemed to step their game up tonight in the playoffs?
Oh yeah, I'm sure you heard me say these two names earlier. Colin Maxey and Raymond Potter. What a time to be alive for these two. Potter got 4 touchdowns and had 61 rushing yards on 71 carries, and Colin Maxey is responsible for moving those chains and setting up Potter for a trip to the end zone.
Wow, Jackson's ground game was clearly the reason they won, but what happened to Bexley's defense?
They had been conditioning all week long to play them, and after that Jackson first touchdown, we saw Bexley's defense kind of disintegrate before our eyes. They only forced 1 Jackson 3-and-out in the first half, and they gave up 4 Jackson touchdown drives in the first half. So when Bexley got it right, I mean, they were good, but most of the time they were not on point.
Well, Jackson, they can rely on that run game for the rest of the playoffs, really. Danny, great win for Jackson. Thanks for the great work, too. Election day has come and gone, but there's still one more issue to vote on, and that's Gridiron Glory's Player of the Year. Head over to our website to cast your vote with who you think should be our next Player of the Year. You can also do your part by spreading the word on Twitter by using our hashtag GGPOY. This year's finalists are Justice Jenkins, Lane Little, Chase Roberts, Mason Chapman, and Zakiah Saltzman. Voting ends on November 17th, so get your vote in before it's too late. The Golden Eagles are in the playoffs for the second straight season. But Belpre, they've never won a playoff game before. And Sean, you were at that game tonight. It was big for them against Harvest Prep.
Yeah, Justin, that was all the motivation that they needed going into the postseason. That was the second straight year that they've qualified for the postseason. So it was really something that they needed to do. So going into the game, Belpre, they're getting fired up. Coach Greg Adams really had them going. They were ready to take the field to get that win. But on their first drive, Matthew Colvin is going to fumble. He's going up the middle. And then Harvest Prep, they threw an interception on that drive. It gave the ball back to the Golden Eagles. So Tavian Miller is dropping back to pass. He's going to run around. He's going around the backfield. He fires it up to Dejon Bedgood. It looks like that's going to be a huge gain for them. But there's an illegal procedure penalty on that play. Dejon Bedgood was out of bounds. He ran back in before catching the ball, so that's incomplete. Belpre would have to punt on that drive. A couple drives later for Harvest Prep, Rodney Meyer Jr., he's cocking back to throw one to Curtis Jones on the outside. He's running like someone told him Canes is about to close. That would get me moving. It's 49-yard score, up 7-0. Belpre is going to respond on their next drive. Thanks to Dejon Bedgood. There's no doubt he's in bounds the entire time there. 7-6 Harvest Prep, though. And the Warriors offense started to find their groove after that. They go up 14-6. Thanks to that, that's the score at halftime. They go up 21-6 early in the third quarter, but 21-19 is the final score. Harvest Prep gets that win, and they just couldn't get over that hump. Curtis Jones for the Warriors, he had 108 receiving yards and 2 receiving touchdowns that you saw, and Myers Jr. only threw 2 incompletions technically, but they still found hands of guys. They were just on the wrong team, 2 interceptions.
So Sean, this game was obviously really close. What was the difference for both teams?
Yeah, I definitely think that Belpre started off really well on the defensive side of the ball, but Harvest Prep just has too many explosive players, and they weren't able to contain them all night. Curtis Jones had a few big plays on the outside, and Daniel Bangura was able to break a few big plays of his own Warrior quarterback Rodney Myers Jr. is a true dual threat quarterback. He made plays with both his arms and his legs. And Belpre, they're a good defensive team, but they have too many playmakers. They have 6 players over 6'3" on their team. And Belpre, they just couldn't contend like that. They haven't seen a team like that all year.
So if Harvest Prep had so many explosive players, how did the Golden Eagles stay in the game really quick, Sean?
Throughout the game, Justin, Belpre, they just had some help. They had some turnovers and penalties by the Warriors. That just helped them kind of get in their groove. It kept drives moving, and that really allowed them to keep it close.
Well, sure, and it was another good season for Belpre, 8-2. They lost in the first round, but a good season overall. Sean,
Definitely.
Thanks for the great work. Now we're going to go ahead. As a fan, I know that no one knows a team quite like you do. But now that the playoffs are here, your teams will be taking on some unfamiliar competition. To see who your team is going up against and what that team brings to the table, just head over to our website at woub.org/gridiron for an in-depth analysis of your team's next game. And you don't have to miss any of the playoff action because we'll be live streaming our postseason episodes on our YouTube page. Last week, South Gallia punched their ticket to their 4th ever playoff appearance. Tonight, the number 8 seed looked to defy all odds and deliver an upset to Danesville Blue Devils. Kelsey Steele is live out in Danesville right now. Kelsey, how did this matchup fare for you?
You know, Danville goes into their 32nd playoff meeting in school history. Meanwhile, playing a team in South Gallia that's only been around for about 20 years. It's the ultimate David versus Goliath matchup, Justin. This time, it's a little bit different than that storybook ending. And a lot of Rebels faithful out in the crowd tonight, but it was Danville who got that opening possession. And boy, did they take advantage. Third play of the drive, Ridge, shaky Durbin, drops it off to Cal Honebarger. Just 34 seconds into the game, 7-0 Danville. South Gallia gets backed up now into their own 1-yard line after that kickoff. Loses their handle on the football. Blue Devils jump on it, 14-0 now. In Rebels' next possession, the Hutchison brothers connect there for a 10-yard gain. Can't make anything of it. So Danville gets that chance to extend their lead, and they do just that. Durbin picks up 14 on the keeper. A few plays later, he calls on Honebarger once again. 9-yard pickup, eases his way into the end zone, 21-0. Rebel ball. Landon Hutchison scrambles. Loads it over to Trenton Sturgeon, 17-yard pickup. Move those chains. South Gallia is in position. But that Danville D says not for long. Showcasing what 8 shutouts this year looks like tonight. And on their ensuing drive, Durbin connects with Kenton Mickley, and it's 28-0 in Danville. The best opportunity of the night here coming up next for South Gallia. Hutchison looks deep and gets a pass interference call here. Puts the Rebels on the 42. They turn over the ball 2 plays later. Sets up Durbin for a 7-yard TD run, and the tide just keeps on rolling. So much time for here for the QB. Finds Mickley with ease. He goes on. Now look at how tough this O-line is for Danville. 1, 2, 3, 4. 5 seconds, and Durbin finally gets rid of that. Honebarger with the grab. 49-0 at the half. 63-0 is your final in Danville. Now 512 total yards for that Danville offense. And what a night for Ridge Durbin. 25 for 34, 284 yards, Justin. What a talent they have in that QB.
So, Kelsey, I only have one question for you. South Gallia knew they were going to have their hands full tonight. How did they handle Dansville's powerful offense?
You know, it's hard to come into a place like Danville and get that win. I have to give credit to South Gallia, though. They have come such a long way in these last few years. They put up a fight with their talents and their weapons and their receivers, and especially Ridge Durbin, way too much to handle. What a kid they have in that guy. Excited to see where they go in the playoffs.
Well, it was an exciting season for South Gallia, and they did a lot of things right this year. Kelsey, thanks a lot. Now, we've talked a lot about our player of the year, but we haven't mentioned the men who lead these players every week. Head over to Twitter and let us know who you think deserves to be Gridiron Glory's next coach of the year. Last year, Jackson's Andy Hall came away with the award after leading Jackson to a perfect 10-0 season and 2 playoff wins. The question is, will he repeat, or do you have a better case for a new coach of the year? Tonight in Gloucester, Trimble and Shadyside met for the third time in 3 years. Anthony Alaka was out there, and there's a lot of history in this matchup, Anthony.
That's right, Justin. I could not have said it any better. But before we jump into things, we should get our feet wet and look at how this game has gone in the past. In 2013, Trimble trailed 14-7 at the half before Justice Jenkins had a crucial interception followed by a 9-yard touchdown catch to change the game. In last year, Shadyside had a 21-6 lead at the half, but 3 total Jenkins touchdowns ultimately led to Trimble scoring the final 25 and coming out on top 31-21. These two teams are familiar with each other and familiar with the postseason, but maybe the third time could be the charm for Shadyside. Trimble has 12 postseasons, and Coach Fairs understands Tomcat football, and with 9 minutes left in the second quarter, Trimble jumped into a big formation. 3 running backs, 2 tight ends, and physical play was what the Tomcats needed, and they stayed in there for a 17-play, 84-yard touchdown drive, but most of that was on the back of Cameron Roback. He's the man who made it happen. The fullback used his strength and athleticism and brute strength to punish Tiger defenders as the lead blocker in this formation, and this big Cameron Curry run to the left side happened when the Tiger defense fell asleep. That fumble did go out of bounds. Trimble keeps the ball. Jenkins is going to center it for his freshman kicker, Max Hopper, who is going to put through his first field goal of the night. Trimble's going to take a 3-0 lead going into the half.
So I just have one question for you, Anthony. You mentioned that the team leading at half has won the last 2 years. Trimble was on top tonight, so how did they come out in the second half, and were they able to win this game in the second half?
Well, in the second half, Trimble was out to an early 17-0 lead after a 92-yard Justice Jenkins touchdown was followed up by a kickoff that Trimble forced a fumble on and then recovered. A short drive led to an 11-yard Jenkins touchdown, which ultimately led to Trimble being up 17-0 at the half, or entering the fourth quarter. But then it was all up to Billy Johnson and his main wide receiver, Chad Wade, who had 2 key touchdowns in the fourth quarter. Ultimately, they came up short and lost 17-14 in this one.
Big win for Trimble. They're going to play Caldwell next week. I'm looking forward to that game. Anthony, thanks a lot. Now, the regular season may be over, but that hasn't stopped us from finding the best 3 plays from tonight. Plus, top plays in the playoffs are a category all by themselves. So let's get it going. Top play number 3 comes from the Alexander Spartans. Lucas Thompson was on last week for his big hit, and here he is again with this 50-yard catch going untouched for the touchdown. Now to top play number 2. Here we have Harvest Prep quarterback Rodney Myers Jr. lofting it up and falling into the hands of Curtis Jones, who speeds past Belfry for the 49-yard touchdown. And here it is, our top play of the night. Justice Jenkins takes the direct snap, busts his way through the line, and he gone. Jenkins is one of our Player of the Year finalists, and for good reason. He scored both Trimble touchdowns, leading the Tomcats to a huge 17-14 win over Shadyside. And like I said, they're going to play Caldwell next week. 8 teams came in, and 5 came away with the win. Andrew Homan will have video previews on our website for all 5 of those games. And before our show next week, be sure to vote for a Player of the Year and tell us who you think should be our next Coach of the Year. And remember, there's nothing better than Friday nights and Gridiron Glory. And before we leave tonight, we want to give our deepest condolences to the Eastern community. We at Gridiron Glory wish Wyatt Barber's family and friends the best through this difficult time. Our thoughts are with you.